की जाए। नामाचार्य ठाकुर की जाए। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जाए। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जाए। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जाए। मायापुर धाम की जाए। जगन्नाथपुरी की जाए। गंगा जमुनमयी की जाए। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जाए। Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Start at 17. This is 18. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 81, entitled The Lord Blesses Sudama Brahmin, texts 17, 18, 19, and 20. So 17, 18, and 19 do not have purports. I'll read them, and then together we'll chant text 20. Text 17. Nivāsitaḥ priyā-juṣṭe paryaṅke bhrātaro yathā mahiṣyā vījitaḥ śrānto bāla-vyajana-hastayā nivāsitaḥ, seated. Priya, by his beloved. Juṣṭe, used. Paryaṅke, on the bed. Bhrātaraḥ, brothers. Yathā, just as. Mahiṣyā, by his queen. Vījitaḥ, fanned. śrāntaḥ, tired. Bāla, of yak-tail hair. Vyajana, a fan. Hastayā, in whose hand. Translation. He treated me just like one of his brothers, making me sit on the bed of his beloved consort. And because I was fatigued, his queen personally fanned me with the yak-tail cāmara. Text 18. śuśrūṣayā paramayā pāda-saṁvāhanādibhiḥ pūjito deva-devena vipra-devena deva-vat śuśrūṣayā, with service. Paramayā, sincere. Pāda, of the feet. Saṁvāhana, massaging. Ādibhiḥ, and so on. Pūjitaḥ, worshipped. Deva-devena, by the Lord of all the demigods. Vipra-devena, by the Lord of the Brahmanas. Deva, a demigod. Vat, like. Translation. Although he is the Lord of all demigods and the object of worship for all Brahmins, he worshipped me as if I were a demigod myself, massaging my feet and rendering other humble services. Text 19. Svarga pavargayo pungsham rasayam bhuvi sampadam sarvasam api siddhinam moolam tach charanarchanam. Svarga, of heaven, apavargayo, and of ultimate liberation, pungsham, for all men, rasayam, in the subterranean regions, bhuvi, and on the earth, sampadam, of opulences, sarvasam, all, api, also, siddhinam, of mystic perfections, moolam, the root cause, tat, his, charana, of the feet, archanam, the worship. Translation. Devotional service to his lotus feet is the root cause of all the perfections a person can find in heaven, in liberation, in the subterranean regions, and on earth. Now we'll chant together text 20. Adanoyam danam prapya madhyan ucharanamam smaret iti karuniko nunam dhaname burina dadat. Adanoyam danam prapya madhyam ucharanamam smaret iti karuniko nunam dhaname burina dadat. Adanoyam danam prapya madhyan ucharanamam smaret iti karuniko nunam dhaname burina dadat. Mataji's? Adanaha, poor person. Ayam, this. Dhanam, riches. Prapya, obtaining. Madhyan, delighting. Uchai, excessively. Na, not. Mam, may. Smaret, will remember. Iti, thus thinking. Karunikaha, compassionate. Nunam, indeed. Dhanam, wealth. Me, to me. Abhuri, slight. Na adadat, he did not give. Translation. Thinking if this poor wretch suddenly becomes rich, he will forget me in his intoxicating happiness. The compassionate Lord did not grant me even a little wealth. We can repeat. Thinking if this poor wretch suddenly becomes rich, he will forget me in his intoxicating happiness. The compassionate Lord did not grant me even a little wealth. Purport. Sudama's statement that Lord Krishna bestowed on him not even a little wealth may also be taken to mean that instead of giving him wealth that was abhuri, slight, the Lord in fact gave him the immense treasure of his association. This alternate meaning has been suggested by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantekam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Arigaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there are 8.5 slokas that we're just in the midst of now, beginning from sloka number 15 up to sloka number 23. 23 is only one line, so that's called a half of a sloka. These 8.5 slokas are the thinking process that Sukadeva Goswami is enlightening with as Sudama Brahman returns to his home after having darshan of his beloved Lord and friend Sri Krishna in Dwarka. So we'll go back to text number 17 and move on from there to understand the intricacies of Sudama Brahman and why he's thinking as he is. So in text number 17, Sudama was remembering the loving affection that Sri Krishna showed to him. Now, even before Sudama entered into the palace, Sri Krishna could see his friend coming, and he ran to greet him and brought him not to just a sitting place in the parlor. He brought him to the very bed where he and Rukmini sleep together, and he had him sit on the bed with him. Now, this is one of the even in the Bhagavad Gita, when he saw the universal form of the Lord, he begged forgiveness from the Lord, that I treated you like a friend, we lay on the same bed together, we ate together, because this is the way friendship is. Vishramba, complete familiarity and trust, that they do everything together. So this is one of the ecstatic symptoms or the activities of friends, that they sit on the same bed together. So this is exactly where Krishna took him, right to his bed in the inner chambers. Then he says, he treated me just like one of his brothers. So Vasudeva, he had 14 wives. And from each of his wives, he had many sons. His first wife was Rohini. And Rohini had many sons and one daughter. Daughter's name was Chitra, who later was known as Subhadra. Now Devaki, she was the 7th wife. There were others after her, including the last 2, which were actually Vasudev's personal attendants. He also gave them sons. So amongst them, there was one of Krishna and Balaram's younger brothers. His name was Gada. And when Krishna is living in Dwarka, he is known by slightly different names than when he is living in Braja. So in Dwarka, one of his names is Gadagraja. So Gada is the brother of Krishna. Agra Ja. That means Krishna was born before Gada. So even the gopis, when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura and was asking about his well-being, they didn't address him anymore as Govinda, as Shyam Sundar, all the beloved names as he's known in Vrindavan, because then he was playing the part of Devaki Suta. And they would call Krishna when they would ask Uddhava, when they would ask other visitors coming from Mathura, how is Gadagraj? Because now Krishna was identifying him as Devaki's son. And this would break their heart, but they understood that Krishna is now going on with his pastimes in Mathura and Dwarka. So just like your brother, you have such familiarity with your brother. And Sudama was remembering the loving affection that Krishna showed to him, and he felt that Krishna was treating him just like his younger brother Gada, making me sit on the bed of his beloved consort. So Rukmini was right there, and many, many Brahmins would come to see Krishna in each of his palaces every day. He would distribute thousands of cows every day to the Brahmins and much charity. And it wasn't anything new for a Brahmin to come to the palace of Rukmini. But the reception that this particular wretched, dirty, poor, thin, emaciated Brahmin received, Rukmini had never seen before. She was astounded how Krishna showed so much affection to this one particular Brahmin. Now, Sudama, he was so humble that although he had a desire to see the Lord, he hadn't seen him for many, many years since they were in the Gurukula together, he feared that they wouldn't even allow him into Dwarka to see Krishna. That's how humble he was. He didn't consider himself to be entitled, that I'm one of Krishna's school friends, I'm one of his close associates, I'm a Brahmin, so certainly they'll let me in. No, he feared they wouldn't even let him in the door. They didn't have to let him in the door because as soon as Krishna saw him, he came running to him. So that's how affectionate Krishna was to Sudama. And because I was fatigued, now why was he fatigued? Well, he lived in a town called Porbandar. Porbandar, that's also where Mahatma Gandhi has his ashram. It's quite famous now. It's 105 kilometers away from Dwarka. And he walked the whole way. It doesn't say that he stopped anywhere along the way, that he ate along the way. He walked 105 kilometers. That's like walking to Delhi. Who can do that? So he was definitely fatigued when he reached Dwarka. And it was obvious from his clothes and from his very facial features that he was tired. So Rukmini, understanding the affection that her husband had for this particular Brahmin, she immediately picked up the ceremonial cāmara with jewels and diamonds and rubies on it that she would use to fan Krishna, and she started to fan Sudama with that. So this is from 15, now it's 17. This is Sudama absorbed in meditation of his meeting with Krishna. And here he is remembering how he was greeted by Krishna and Rukmini when he entered into the palace. Now we go into text 18. This is a very important text. It has important words in it. śuśrūṣayā. So śuśrūṣayā you'll find throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. It means with service. So although he is the Lord of all demigods and the object of worship for all Brahmins, that comes later, the deva-devena, he's the deva-deva, Krishna's deva-deva, he's the Lord of all the demigods. And he's worshipped by the demigods. By, when it's eno on the end, it means by. He's worshipped by the demigods as well. And he's vipra-devena. He's also the Lord of the Brahmins. The Brahmins also worship him. Still, he worshipped me as if I were a demigod myself. Now that's at the end of the sloka, deva-vat. So we know this little word vat, like we have Bhagavat. Bhagavat means one who possesses all of the opulences. So Sudama, just thinking to himself, he was remembering that although he's the Lord of all the demigods, although he's the worshipable Lord of all the Brahmins, he worshipped me as if I were a demigod, deva-vat. Then he said, massaging my feet and rendering other humble services. So here, Krishna is rendering service to his devotee. But throughout the Bhagavatam, beginning with the very first canto, chapter 2, sloka 22, where Narada Muni is speaking to the sages, he explains with the same word, śuśrūṣayā, that the only way to attain perfection in life is to worship the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Here we have Vishnu worshipping Sudama. Now Sudama did not feel in any way entitled to be worshipped. He considered he wasn't even a devotee. He concluded that the only reason Krishna was giving him all this special favor was because he happened to be born in a Brahmin family, and Krishna, he is especially favorable to the Go Brahmanya Devai. He's especially favorable to the Brahmins. So because Krishna wanted to show special favor just because he happened to be a Brahmin, therefore Krishna was worshipping him like this. Now kings in the former ages, in the Vedic ages, Prabhupada explains, any time a saintly person would come to their palace, they would immediately rise up from their seat and offer the saintly person a seat and offer him different articles of worship. But Krishna went completely out of his way. Not only did he offer him a seat, food and drink, he offered him incense, he offered him arti, he washed his feet, and he took that water and he sprinkled it on his head. Now this is really fully worship. Just as we would worship the Lord, Krishna is worshiping this poor, wretched Brahmin whose veins were sticking out because he didn't eat enough, he didn't have enough to eat, he had dirty cloth. It's explained that normally for a respectable person, they wear two cloths, the lower cloth and the upper cloth. He didn't even have two cloths. That's what one of the acharyas explains. That's how poor he was. So that's this sloka. Now we go on to text number 19. Now 19, very interesting sloka, because in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, on the section about how one is to worship the Supreme Lord, this sloka is used as the example for archanam, worship of the Supreme Lord. Now this sloka is spoken here by Sudama, and he's explaining devotional service to his lotus feet is the root cause of all the perfections a person can find in heaven, in liberation, in the subterranean regions, and on earth. So, Sudama, being a pure devotee, he understood the perfection of life, no matter where you're situated in the universe, whether you're in the hellish regions, which is Rasatala, the lowest, just above Patala Loka, whether you're in the Svarga Loka, whether you're already liberated, or whether you're on Earth planet as he was. The only way to attain the perfection of life is to perform devotional service to his lotus feet. Now, in the Nectar of Devotion, we remember that Sudama was especially dear to Krishna because when Krishna and Balaram went to the Gurukul of Sandipani Muni, they were feeling intense separation from all their friends, father, and their beloveds in Vraja. And Sudama happened to have the name of one of Krishna's dearmost friends, Sudama. Sometimes he's also called Sridama in different Puranas. But here he's called Sudama. So what happens in the Nectar Devotion is, this sloka, Srila Prabhupada refers to Sudama in Braja Leela. Now there are two kinds of friends. There's the Braja friends and they're the city friends. Amongst the city friends, 4 are most prominent. That's Arjun, Bhimasen, Draupadi, and Sudama Vipra. So he's foremost amongst all of Krishna's city friends. Amongst the Braja friends, Sudama is also one of the foremost. And Prabhupada explains in the Nectar Devotion that one day, this is chapter 23 of the 10th canto, one day Krishna and Balaram were wandering here in Vrindavan, and all the boys were hungry and thirsty. So Krishna told Sudama particularly that just nearby, the Brahmanas are performing a sacrifice. I want you to go to them and tell them that Rama and Krishna are just nearby and they're hungry. And they want you to give some of the food from the sacrifice. And explain to them that now you're allowed to give food because of the particular time in the sacrifice that you're performing. So while Sudama was going to meet these Brahmins, he didn't know how the Brahmins were going to welcome him or ignore him. He didn't know what was going to happen. He did exactly what Krishna said, and he explained to these Vedic Brahmins that Rama and Krishna are here, they're asking you for food, they're hungry, and the Brahmins completely ignored him. They didn't even look at him. They went on with their puja, with their sacrifice. They didn't say yes, they didn't say no. So Sudama, he didn't know what to do because he couldn't get any food from them. He came back to Krishna and he told him what happened. And Krishna said, now you go to their wives and you tell them the same thing. When the wives, they had no Gurukul training. They weren't brahmacharis. They never studied the Vedas. But they were very fortunate because they lived so close to Braja that the flower sellers, the pan sellers, all the different people coming between Mathura and Braja, they used to tell these ladies all about Krishna. And they had already developed unalloyed love for Krishna, even though they were Brahmin wives. So when they heard that Krishna was nearby, they dropped everything. They forgot about all of their Brahminical responsibilities. They rushed with all of the food meant for the sacrifice and gave it directly to Krishna and Balaram. And then Krishna, he thanked them very much, and he said, I'm a cowherd boy, now you should go back, you should serve your husbands and help them, they need your help, you're grihastas, they're performing sacrifice. And the wives, they objected that, well, according to the Shastra, when someone fully surrenders to you, you accept them. And Krishna explained that, yes, but more important than that is that you perfect your love for me by hearing about me, by chanting about me, by worshiping me, in separation from me. So therefore, I request you to return and perform your duties, and I will inform your husbands, your brothers, your sons, your fathers, that you are first-class devotees and they should accept you back. So, although this sloka is spoken in the 81st chapter of the 10th canto, Srila Prabhupada takes this exact same sloka, that devotional service to his lotus feet is the root cause of all the perfections a person can find, and he refers it to the Sudama in the Braja Leela, how the Brahmins there, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatam mans prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajam yaham. As anyone surrenders to me, I reward them accordingly. So these Brahmins who were performing the sacrifices, they could not recognize Krishna, and therefore they lost their opportunity to have his direct darshan. But the wives who had heard about Krishna, who had complete faith in him, they were able to come and have direct darshan of the Supreme Lord and perform archana, worship him by giving him food. So they were more glorious than their Brahmin husbands. Then we have the example of Sudama Brahmin, who he had all the proper training, but he loved Krishna. And he loved Krishna so much that even from Krishna, when he hadn't seen Krishna for so many years, he maintained that fraternal love for Krishna. And when his wife asked him to please go see Krishna, bring him a little bit of this chipped rice, just in order to see his friend, not to ask him for anything, he immediately walked to Dwarka. So these are the two different types of Brahmins. Now in this 19, wait a minute, one of the pages there. Okay, so in this 19th sloka, there are many different examples of devotees in different portions of the universe. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear how although, as in text 18, they were worshiping the Supreme Lord, śuśrūṣayā, they might have been worshiping for alternative purposes. Just as the Brahmins, they were performing sacrifices, and of course the enjoyer of all sacrifices is Vishnu, but their ulterior purposes were to attain svargalok, to get different types of material benefits. Now, Devahuti, she worshipped her husband with great devotion, and therefore she was able to get the Supreme Lord as her son. Diti, she worshipped her husband with great devotion, but she worshipped her husband to get a son to kill Indra, which was impure. The same word is used, śuśrūṣayā. Also Archie, she worshipped her husband, Prithu. Now we have Prahlad's mother. We know that when the demigods came, when Hiranyakashipu was performing his sacrifices, his tapasya, the first thing they did was they captured his wife because she was pregnant. And they expected that this child was going to be as great a demon as his father. So they had no interest in the wife. they wanted to wait until the son was born and kill the son. Now Narada Muni saved both the wife and Prahlad, explained to Indra that you can't kill this child, he's a pure devotee. I will take them to my ashram until Hiranyakashipu returns from his tapasya. So the wife of Hiranyakashipu very devotionally served Narada Muni. Now why did she serve him? She served him because she was not going to let this baby be born until her husband returned from the forest. So she was worshiping and hearing from Narada Muni for a material purpose. She just wanted to wait until her son was born, and then she would return to her husband. So although she heard from Narada Muni exactly the same things that Prahlad heard in the womb, because she was performing that devotional service to Narada Muni for a material reason, she forgot everything afterwards. Whereas Prahlad Maharaj, he heard in pure devotion, and therefore, although he wasn't even born, he remembered everything. So we may perform great devotional service, but if there's an ulterior motive, we will not get the result of pure devotion, and we will not be able to remember the instructions that our Guru Maharaj gives us. So we have to be very careful when we're performing this archanam, this devotional service. It should be in pure consciousness that I am only serving the Supreme Lord to please Him for no other purpose. Otherwise you can get all types of benefits like Diti got, like Kayadu got, but it has nothing to do with devotional service. So our devotional service that Narada Muni recommends, that here is recommended by Sudama Brahman, must be in pure consciousness with no other motive. Now Sudama, he feared, he expected that Krishna, being the Supreme Lord, could understand his heart. And he thought that Krishna knew I had come because my wife asked me to beg from him. Now, Krishna and Sudama had a friendly relationship from a long time back. And if you have a friend, let's say you're in trouble, the first person you'll go to is your friend. One may say, well, there are lots of palaces and all the Yadus lived in Dwarka. He could have gone anywhere. He could have gone to beg anywhere. But the first place he went was to Krishna's palace. He didn't want to beg, and he never did beg. He just wanted to have the darshan of the Lord, that's all, because he loved Krishna. But he suspected that Krishna understood the motive for which his wife had sent him. And therefore, as he was walking back, he felt ashamed for two reasons. First of all, he felt that his motive for going to take darshan of Krishna was not actually pure, and Krishna realized that. Second of all, he was coming back to his wife completely empty-handed. He hadn't gotten anything from Krishna. How was he going to face his wife now? So he was ashamed for two reasons. He was embarrassed in front of Krishna because he had come for some motive, and he was ashamed because he was going back to his wife. He had nothing to give to her, although he had gone to see Krishna for that reason. So Sudama, ultimately, because he was a pure devotee, now we come to 20. So he says, Sudama is, again, he's just thinking all of this to himself. He's not talking to anyone. If this poor wretch suddenly becomes rich, he will forget me in his intoxicating happiness. So now he's thinking, what is Krishna thinking? Because Krishna could understand why he came to see him. And Krishna did not give him anything because Sudama would then forget him. Now, we have the example, this is what's called a rags to riches story, because Sudama came in rags, and by the time he got home, he had a palatial, just like Svargaloka. Rukmini awarded him so much. Now, back in sloka number 10, when Rukmini grabs the hand of Krishna to not take more than a few morsels, there was a silent conversation that went on between Rukmini and Krishna. Now, husband and wives, they know each other very well. They can, just by looking at each other, they can understand each other sometime. So Rukmini was telling Krishna, she said, stop. You don't have to eat anymore. But I want my friend to get a lot, so I want to eat more. She said, I've already given him all of the wealth of the heavenly planets through my extended expansion, Lakshmi Devi, the material deity of wealth. I've already given it to him at his house. His house, I've already turned it into a palace. This is, as soon as Krishna took a few morsels, Rukmini immediately reciprocated. The house had been already turned into a palace. So she was explaining to her husband, looking at him quite harshly, that if you take any more, I don't have anything else to give him. I'm going to have to give myself to him. So please, don't take any more. And besides that, you're the Supreme Lord, and we're your servants, your maidservants, everyone in the palace here. They're all fully devoted to you. They're my assistants. Now, when you take prasadam, everyone wants to get some of your remnants. So you have to leave a little bit so that I can distribute it to all of my hundreds and thousands of servants and maidservants in the palace. They're just going to get a little bit of that rice, and they'll take that to be just like nectar. So therefore, she stopped him. And Krishna did not take any more of the rice because Rukmini wanted to distribute it. So Sudama is now thinking that he did not pass the test because we have the example of Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada went to America, he had in his possession, we know he had 40 rupees. 40 rupees does not, it doesn't even mean anything in America. It's nothing. Prabhupada said 40 rupees, what he had, was worth a few hours of comfort in America. Nothing. It would have been finished in a few hours. That's all. 10 years later, Srila Prabhupada had in his possession tens of millions of dollars. How is that? That from a pauper who came with nothing, Krishna gave him so much. That's because he passed the test. Now, what is that test that Sudama felt he did not pass? That test is that if I get the wealth, I will forget my Lord. Now, there's one word in this sloka that we chant every day. In the Sri Guru Vastakam, Mahaprabhur Kirtana Nitya Gita, Paritra Madhyan Manasora Sena. So the word Madhyan is there, delighting, right? When the spiritual master hears that his disciples are chanting and dancing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master becomes delighted. So when a pauper suddenly receives a great deal of wealth, he becomes maddened with delight, as if intoxicated. And he starts to spend lavishly because he didn't have to make the money. It just came upon him. And he's using it and misusing it, and he forgets all about how it was received. So Sudama, he felt that he had failed the test, that Krishna could understand his heart, that if Krishna had given him anything, he would forget the Lord, he would misuse the wealth, and he would lose his devotion and forget that it was the Lord himself who had given it. So Sudama, as we heard yesterday, there are two different types of poverty. One is when one has an aversion and one is inimical to wealth. And one is when one is indifferent to wealth. Now, Sudama Brahman, by choice, he remained poverty-stricken. He could have gone out every day and begged. He could have tried to make his household a little more comfortable for his family, but he chose not to. And he was proud, actually, of the fact that he had complete poverty. He liked that he was a poverty-stricken Brahmin. He felt that this was the proper devotional mood for him in his relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now, Jiva Goswami explains that it was this false pride that Krishna wanted to break. It was his last false ego attachment that Sudama Brahman had, that I am a completely renounced, poverty-stricken Brahmin. And that is why, had Rukmini spoken out loud to Krishna that please don't give him any more, I've already given him all the wealth of Indra, then Sudama Brahman would not have spoken this text number 20. Sudama didn't know what he was going home to. He thought he was going home empty-handed, and he would continue to live as he always had lived, poverty-stricken. And he just, by the grace of Krishna, he got the darshan of his dear friend, the Supreme Lord. But Krishna wanted to break that false pride that I am a poverty-stricken Brahmin by giving him so much wealth that he had to become indifferent to that wealth. And he had to become perfect in the process of yukta vairagya, which is, as we know from Srila Rupa Goswami, that is the real nature of pure devotional service, to see everything as the energy of the Lord and use everything in the Lord's service. So when Sudama Brahma, tomorrow we'll read about it, text 21 to 23, when Sudama Brahma returns to where his poverty-stricken shack was, and he sees parks, gardens, beautiful doe-eyed women, demigod-like men, palaces, his wife looking just like the goddess of fortune, and he can't understand where's his home, where did everything go, then he realized what Krishna had done. Krishna had given him so much wealth so that he would use that wealth in Krishna's service. He continued to sleep on the floor, even though he now had a palace and beautiful white like milk foam beds. He still slept on the floor. He maintained his sadhana, but everything he used that was given by Krishna, he used in the service of the Lord. And that way, his bhakti became perfected. So Prabhupada will sometimes give the example that if you go to a Mayavadi sannyasi and you offer the Mayavadi sannyasi some money, he will say, no, 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 no. He said, but if you offer some money to me, I will say, yes, yes, yes. Because Srila Prabhupada passed the test that Krishna had given him. When he was completely poverty-stricken, he never asked Krishna for anything. He simply went on with his devotional service, trying to carry out the order of his spiritual master. And when Krishna was convinced that everything that Krishna gave him, he would use in the service of his spiritual master, Krishna then gave Prabhupada unlimited wealth like no one has ever seen of a sannyasi. Srila Prabhupada was able to make in his lifetime 108 beautiful temples around the world. And some of these temples, like the Palace of Gold, like the Deva Sadan in Detroit, it's as beautiful as a palace in the heavenly planets. And hundreds and thousands of disciples, cars, buildings, properties, everything Krishna gave to Prabhupada because he passed that test of using everything in Krishna's service. So we have to learn from this. The two Sudamas, the Sudama in Braja, who went to approach the Brahmins, who were not properly. And when the Brahmins understood that they had lost the opportunity to have direct darshan of the Supreme Lord because of their contaminated consciousness, they condemn themselves. Dik. Although we have triple birth from our father as a Brahmin, birth for our initiation as a Brahmin, and birth to perform sacrifices. Although we've studied all the Vedas, although we're so qualified, we fail to recognize the Supreme Lord. So these types of Brahmins who do not recognize the Supreme Lord, even though at that time they could have still run to take darshan of Krishna, who was just there in the nearby forest, still they feared that Kamsa would find out from his spies that they went to see Krishna and he would come and kill them. So still they were impure. So therefore they could not get the darshan of the Supreme Lord. Whereas Sudama Brahmin, he overcame all obstacles. He went directly. Krishna himself came out to greet him. And at the end of this chapter, we will hear how Sudama Brahmin, his love for Krishna was so pure. He only asked for 4 things, and those 4 things were only in pure devotional service. He asked for sohrid. Sohrid means a type of friendship where you're sympathetic and you want to help the person. He asked for sakya. Sakya means familiar friendship, equal. They trust each other. Vishramba. They can do everything together, play together, joke together. He asked for maitri, a different type of friendship. Maitri means affectionate friendship. And finally, he asked for dasya. Dasya means that please let me remain Krishna's friend eternally, and at the same time, let me remain in the association of your servants so that I can always hear about the devotional service to your lotus feet. So these were the pure desires of Sudama Vipra. He only wanted devotional service in friendship. He had no other desire. Although Krishna gave him all of the wealth of the heavenly planets, he had no interest. He was completely indifferent. And therefore, he attained, although he didn't even want it, he attained the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are different types of mukti. There's salokya, living on the same planet as the Lord. There's samipya, that's living very close to the Lord, which is considered better than salokya. There's shashti, getting all the opulence of the Lord. And there's sarupya, which is getting the same forearm features of the Lord. And then there's sayujya, which is rejected by the devotees. So although he attained the spiritual world, he was completely liberated from this material world, went back to Godhead where all the saintly persons live. He was completely indifferent to any type of material desires. In the 11th canto, it's explained that one who has material desires, that is the cause of all suffering. And one who has no material desires, that is the cause of all happiness. And Krishna explains in the 11th chapter, just at the end, after Arjuna had gotten darshan of Krishna, a universal form, four-armed form, two-armed form, Krishna explains to Arjuna, also his very dear friend, that you can only see me and understand the mysteries of my personality through Ananya Bhakti, by pure, unalloyed devotional service. Then you can see me face to face as I am standing before you now. So this same Ananya Bhakti, finally, was what Sudama Brahman was able to attain when he was able to give up his false concept of renunciation and accept in Krishna's service everything that he gave him in his service. All right, we have a few minutes if anyone has any questions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. I really appreciate. If I'm very clear,
Hold it closer.
If I'm very clear so far,
Yes.
these are Sudama's reflection. These locusts are Sudama's reflection.
Yes.
In the visit he went to. If we look at the beginning of this chapter, what needs to be done in particular. So the wife suggests, why don't you do it? There was some tension there. So perhaps we went to Krishna, and the hospitality was overwhelming to him. So when he leave on the way, he begin to reflect on the hospitality of the house.
Yes.
Somehow he remembered my wife. The intention was to please my wife somehow.
Yes.
So like this, using this reflection, like a kind of a consolation. 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 Let me console myself. I don't know, maybe I'm not fulfilling the intention of my wife. So
yes.
It cannot be consolation. I don't know, something like that.
Well, he was so, imagine if you have the direct darshan of the Lord and he worships you and he washes your feet. He was so absorbed in remembering the Lord, he didn't even think of, he was thinking that it was his disqualification having come for that purpose, and that's why Krishna didn't give him anything. But his wife was also a pure devotee, because she was a pativrati. She only wanted all of these, whatever Krishna was going to give, so that she could serve her husband better. So it wasn't that she was a greedy person and that she sent him so that she could enjoy. She just wanted to be able to serve her Brahmin husband better. So when one gets the darshan of the Lord, we don't remember all of the details of what's going on in our daily life. We're so absorbed, and that's also one of the qualities of friendship. The different things that Krishna's friends are attracted to, his smiling, his wit, his knowledge, his being able to speak so sweetly, his beautiful features. They're just absorbed in all of his different qualities, and they don't care about themselves. They just think about Krishna. And therefore, he's only thinking of Krishna on the way home. He's not thinking of his wife at all.
I agree with what you say, but from in this perspective, like somebody who, this was my intention. Okay, let me just console myself. Perhaps Krishna has different intention. Perhaps Krishna has different intention.
Yeah,
Krishna has different intention. So his intention was, let me console myself because it don't appear that I forget the intention of my wife.
Yes, he was consoling himself that Krishna, he knows me better than anyone. And he knows that if he were to give me anything, then I would forget him. So therefore, Krishna did the best thing for me. So he was consoling himself in that way. Okay. Any more questions? All right. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.